So picture this, a beloved pirate cruise ship, a vessel that's literally designed as a floating shrine to their hero, just gets blown to absolute splinters by one of the most powerful emperors in the sea.
Right, completely obliterated.
Yeah, just gone. And meanwhile, across the ocean, you've got a legendary marine hero locked up, bound by 100 heavy chains. And like, if that isn't bizarre enough for you, our favorite navigator wakes up wearing this Viking outfit, carrying a sword she's never seen before, and she finds herself trapped inside a giant Lego house.
It is, it's a lot to take in.
It's so much. But you know, this isn't just random chaos. Every single one of these bizarre events is like a domino falling in the collapse of the old world order.
Exactly.
So welcome, everyone. Okay, let's unpack this. Today's deep dive is all about sifting through this massive wave of community analysis, fan reactions, and source transcripts centered on One Piece Chapter 1126.
Because, I mean, the entire global structure is fracturing right now.
Yeah.
To really grasp what is happening in these sources, you have to look at the massive power vacuum created when the old generation of emperors fell. What we're witnessing is the highest tier of the pirate world scrambling.
Just absolute panic and land grabbing.
Right. They're either violently defending their remaining borders or, ruthlessly expanding them. And they're doing this while the global police force is basically looking the other way.
Looking the other way because they're stretched so thin.
Yeah.
Well, I want to start with the defense of those borders because the opening event in our sources is incredibly explosive.
Oh, absolutely.
I honestly don't buy the whole harsh reality politics excuse for a second when it comes to Shanks. Let's just look at the actual mechanics of what just happened.
Okay, let's look at it.
So Bartolomeo, who is, the ultimate Luffy fanboy, he goes and burns Shanks' flag, which, okay, terrible move, monumentally bad idea.
Massive taboo, yeah.
Right. So Shanks captures him, beats him, hands him a bottle of poison, and basically says, drink this to save yourself.
Yeah.
Bartolomeo, without hesitating, just chugs it.
Right, he's fully ready to die rather than betray his loyalty to Luffy.
Exactly. But then Shanks reveals the poison is fake. He smiles, lets them sail away, and then, and this is the part that gets me, he has his sniper, Yasopp, completely obliterate their ship from behind.
Just entirely destroys the going Luffy senpai.
Yeah. I mean, at what point do we stop calling this maintaining borders and start realizing Shanks might actually be the final villain here? Like, he gave them false hope just to crush them.
See, I think calling him a villain applies a traditional moral framework to a system that operates entirely on fear, like fear and deterrence.
But it just seems so cruel.
What's fascinating here is that you have to think of an emperor's flag less like a corporate logo and more like a nuclear deterrent.
Okay, so it's not just a brand.
Not at all. In the New World, there is no centralized police force protecting these islands. There are no courts. The only thing keeping thousands of ruthless, bloodthirsty pirates from slaughtering the innocent civilians living in Shanks' territory is the absolute terrifying certainty that if you disrespect the red hair pirates, you will be annihilated.
I get that, I really do. Like, if a rival company burns down your billboard, you can't just give them a stern talking to and let them walk away. You have to protect the brand. But he already proved his point.
Did he, though?
Well, yeah. He broke Bartolomeo down.
Yeah.
He tested his loyalty. He saw that the kid was willing to die for his ideals.
But he tested his loyalty privately.
All right.
The world doesn't see a quiet character-building moment with a fake poison bottle. The world only sees the flag burning.
Because that's what makes the news.
Exactly. If Bartolomeo sails away in a pristine ship, the deterrent is completely gone. The message broadcast to the criminal underworld becomes, hey, you can burn Shanks' flag, walk into his territory, and live.
And then everyone starts doing it.
Right. The very next day, 50 other pirate crews test that theory, and thousands of innocent people under his protection die.
Wow, okay. That paints a different picture.
So the destruction of the ship wasn't malice, it was a mandatory public broadcast.
So the cruelty is the point. The cruelty is basically the currency that buys safety for his people.
Yes, and it's a highly calculated cruelty. Think about the target. Shanks and Yasopp are veterans, right? They know exactly who they're dealing with.
Bartolomeo has the barrier devil fruit.
Exactly. Which allows him to create completely indestructible shields. It's highly probable they calculated that Bartolomeo would throw up a barrier at the last possible second.
Just to shield his crew from the blast.
Right. The objective was to destroy the symbol of their defiance, the ship itself. Not necessarily to massacre the men aboard, it sends the message without shedding the blood of his protege's allies.
Which is such a wild tightrope to walk. But okay, so Shanks violently protecting his borders is just one side of this massive power vacuum. The other side is what happens when someone decides to exploit that exact same vacuum to go on the absolute offensive.
Oh.
And that brings us to Pirate Island, Hakanosu, and a hostage situation that feels, frankly, suicidal.
You're referring to Blackbeard holding Monkey D. Garp.
Yes. Bound in 100 chains. The sources emphasize that heavily. 100 chains. And fans are heavily theorizing they have to be made of sea stone, right?
It would make sense.
Even though Garp doesn't have a devil fruit power to neutralize, you'd still need the densest, most unbreakable material on the planet just to keep an old man with monstrous Hakaki from tearing the entire island apart with his bare hands.
Oh, absolutely. He's a powerhouse.
But here is where the logic completely falls apart for me. Blackbeard's master plan is to use Gark as a bargaining chip to force the world government to officially recognize his pirate haven as an affiliated nation.
That's the goal. Yeah.
He is holding the hero of the Marines hostage. This doesn't feel like political leverage. It feels like putting a giant neon target on your back.
From everyone.
Yeah. From the Marines, from Luffy, and from the Revolutionary Army, which is led by Garp's own son. He is poking 3 massive bears at the exact same time. It's insane.
See, you're analyzing his strategy through the lens of traditional warfare, assuming Blackbeard wants or fears a conventional fight.
Oh, doesn't he?
No, he doesn't play by Marine rules. He isn't poking a bear. He's baiting a trap while the forest is already on fire.
Oh, that's a good way to put it.
Look at the geopolitical board right now. The Revolutionary Army is physically cutting off the food supply to the celestial dragons in the capital. The world is in open rebellion.
So everyone is distracted.
Completely. Blackbeard is a master of asymmetric warfare. He knows the Marines are stretched to their absolute breaking point dealing with these global uprisings.
So the timing is entirely predatory. He knows the government literally does not have the fleet capacity to launch a full-scale siege on Hachinosu right now.
Exactly. And add to that the specific, terrifying crew he has assembled on that island.
Oh my gosh, the crew.
This isn't just a group of tough brawlers. You have Katarina Devon, who can perfectly impersonate anyone she touches, making infiltration impossible. You have Caribou, a logistical nightmare who can store infinite supplies or prisoners in his swamp body. And you have Avalo Pizarro, who possesses the island assimilation fruit.
Pizarro is terrifying.
He is. Pizarro doesn't just live on Hachinosu, he is Hachinosu. The sources show him casually lifting entire marine battleships out of the ocean with giant hands made of stone.
Yeah, just grabbing them like toys.
If the Marines do somehow scrape together a rescue fleet, they aren't just invading an island, they're fighting a living hostile landmass.
A living weapon of mass destruction holding the ultimate bargaining chip.
Exactly.
And there's that terrifying theory floating around the community sources about Charlotte Pudding too, because Blackbeard has her captive as well.
Right, the memory manipulation.
Yeah, her power allows her to literally pull memories out of someone's head like film strips, cut them with scissors, and rewrite them.
Which elevates this from a physical hostage situation to a psychological weapon.
It's so dark.
Imagine the devastating consequences of rewriting the memories of the hero of the Marines. Blackbeard isn't just trying to build a recognized pirate nation, he's attempting to acquire the ultimate sword and shield to legitimize it.
Because he knows the world government might just cave to his demands.
Exactly. They simply cannot afford another massive conflict right now.
Wow. Okay, so we have nuclear-level deterrence with Shanks, we have asymmetric warfare and geopolitical extortion with Blackbeard. And then, out of nowhere, the narrative violently throws us and the core crew into what feels like a hallucinogenic fever dream.
It is quite the pivot.
I am completely lost on this sequence of events. The tonal whiplash is giving me vertigo.
It's a jarring shift, for sure, but it's deliberately designed to disorient the reader just as much as the characters. After pages of heavy global politics, plunging the protagonists into the surreal resets the stakes.
Well, it definitely worked.
Yeah.
So the crew is on the ship celebrating. They drink this mysterious alcohol called the Green Fairy, which is obviously a nod to real-world absinthe.
Right, the infamous Green Fairy.
Yeah, and we all know absinthe's historical, albeit somewhat mythologized, reputation for supposedly inducing intense hallucinations among artists in the 19th century. So they drink it, and the next thing we know, the ship is just gone. The core East Blue Crew Luffy, Zoro, Nami, Usopp, Sanji, plus Chopper are just missing.
Vanished without a trace.
And Nami wakes up wearing full Viking gear, holding a sword she's never owned, and she's standing inside a giant Lego dollhouse.
It's such a bizarre visual.
I need you to explain this to me. We're heading into Elbaf, right? The land of giants and Vikings. Where do interlocking plastic bricks fit into Norse mythology? It feels like a massive distracting continuity error in the world building.
I get why you'd think that. It seems like a glaring mismatch until you trace the real-world geography of that mythology. Think about it. The culture of Elbaf is entirely built on Vikings.
Right.
Where did the Vikings historically originate?
Scandinavia.
And which Scandinavian country invented the Lego?
Oh my gosh, wait, Denmark.
There you go.
Oh my word, that is infuriatingly brilliant. Denmark is in Scandinavia, so the creator literally built a multi-layered cultural pun.
Exactly.
A massive Scandinavian toy box for a Scandinavian-themed island. I can't believe I didn't see that.
It's a hallmark of this narrative's deep cultural weaving. If we connect this to the bigger picture, the Lego structure isn't just a clever visual gag. It tells us exactly who took them and why.
Okay, what's the running theory?
The leading theory in the community points to Loki, the Prince of Elbaf.
Oh, the trickster god.
Right, a trickster god playing with pirate action figures in a literal giant dollhouse.
But why this specific group of action figures? Why only take the original early era crew members? Like the people left behind on the other ship are Jinbe, Robin, Frankie, and Brooke.
Well, look at the resumes of the people left behind. We have a former warlord of the sea, an elite assassin who survived in the criminal underground for decades, a literal cyborg battleship, and a veteran pirate from the previous era.
They're heavy hitters.
They're pragmatic, lethal, and incredibly self-sufficient. By surgically removing that safety net, the narrative forces the original crew back into a state of extreme vulnerability.
Ah, I see. It fundamentally resets the power scaling.
It resets the tension. We've spent years watching these core characters become borderline demigods, capable of toppling emperors.
It's gotten so strong.
Exactly. So to bring back the genuine threat of adventure and discovery, you have to isolate them. You have to strip away their heavy hitters and drop them into a bizarre, oversized environment where brute force might not be the immediate answer.
You have to rely on their wits again.
Yes. They have to rely on the raw survival instincts they had back at the very beginning of their journey.
Stripped down to their survival instincts. I love that. And survival instincts are basically the theme of what's happening in the margins of this chapter too.
Very much so.
The cover stories and the background details are doing a lot of heavy lifting here to show how the rest of the world is coping with this massive power shift.
The margins in this series are almost always a roadmap for the next localized geopolitical crisis. You really can never ignore the background details.
Right, so we see Yamato, who stayed behind to protect the samurai nation of Wano, eating at a local shop. And Yamato casually finds out that girls are mysteriously disappearing or being kidnapped across the region. At first glance, it just looks like a standard, hero needs a localized side quest setup. But why insert a random kidnapping plot into Wano right now? Kaido is gone, the borders are still closed, and Wano is supposed to be finally free.
Wano is free, but freedom without a massive standing army is incredibly fragile. You have to consider the twisted paradox of a tyrant like Kaido.
What do you mean?
His sheer monstrous presence provided a horrific kind of stability. No outside force, and not even the world government, dared to infiltrate Wano because Kaido was a living wall of terror.
Oh, wow. The nuclear deterrent again, just like Shank's flag.
Exactly the same mechanism. Now, Kaido is buried in magma. Luffy claimed Wano as his territory, but Luffy isn't physically there to cast that shadow of fear.
So a localized power vacuum opens up.
Yes. The kidnappings are the direct, real-world consequence of a territory losing its monster. Opportunists, smugglers, or perhaps rival underworld factions are testing the waters because the wall has fallen.
That makes total sense.
It demonstrates that the fall of an emperor doesn't just reshape the top tier of the world, it emboldens the scavengers at the bottom.
So every action at the top has an equal and terrifying reaction at the bottom. Though I have to say, it wasn't all heavy geopolitical dread in the margins.
No, there were some lighter moments.
We did get that incredible callback with the giant warriors, Oimo and Kashi.
Oh, that was great.
Right. After the events of Water 7, which was years ago for us as readers, they traveled back to Little Garden and found their captains, Dory and Broogie. And they were still fighting their century-long duel,
Still going at it.
but with their bare hands because their colossal weapons had completely shattered from the force of their previous strikes.
It perfectly encapsulates the absurdity and the immense honor code of the giants.
It really does.
It serves as a narrative anchor, reminding us of the unyielding, almost stubborn pride that defines Elbaf culture, right as we are being thrown into the surreal Lego version of it.
And speaking of emotional anchors, the community source is absolutely lit up over a single, quiet panel of Bonnie.
Oh, yes. That was beautiful.
After everything this young girl has suffered, the trauma, the fleeing, the horrific scientific experiments on her father, she's finally seen just getting to act her actual physical age.
She's just a kid.
Yeah, she's safely hiding behind Jinbi, tugging on his clothes like a normal kid, while her father, Kuma, sits beside her with a gentle smile. It's so wholesome.
After chapters and chapters of relentless tragedy surrounding her family, providing that visual and emotional release is essential. It grounds the sprawling epic back down to the human element.
Reminds you what they're fighting for.
Exactly. The characters fight these massive wars against emperors and governments so that a traumatized child can simply afford to be a child.
It really hits right in the chest. It's the ultimate why behind all the chaos we've unpacked today. So pulling all these wildly different threads together, we are looking at a world that is fundamentally broken and desperately trying to reconfigure itself. We have the brutal calculated terror required to maintain a pirate empire's borders. We have the predatory exploitation of a stretched military force through impossible hostage scenarios. And we have a shattered core crew trying to survive a hallucinogenic Scandinavian puzzle box.
It's a perfect storm of consequence.
Yeah.
Every fallen emperor, every burned flag, every missing heavy hitter changes the survival calculus for everyone else on the board. The micro and the macro are completely intertwined.
Which leaves me asking you, the listener, what part of this massive power shift grabs you the most? Are you captivated by the high-stakes, asymmetric warfare Blackbeard is waging with the Marines?
Or are you simply dying to know how Nami is going to sword fight her way out of a giant plastic trickster god dollhouse?
Because honestly, both are equally compelling right now.
The beauty of a world this vast is that the geopolitical chess match and the surreal fairy tale are happening simultaneously, and they will inevitably collide.
And speaking of inevitable collisions, I want to leave you with one final lingering thought. We established that Bartolomeo likely survived Yassop's blast by throwing up a barrier.
Right, highly probable.
But he just watched his ship, a ship built as a literal tribute to Monkey D. Luffy, get completely eradicated by Luffy's childhood hero.
Yeah.
When Luffy finds out that Shanks did this, when he realizes the man whose hat he wears just tried to slaughter his grand fleet to protect a flag, is a full-scale, devastating war between Luffy and Shanks, now entirely unavoidable. Think about that. Thanks for taking this deep dive with us today.
If you enjoy this video, please like, share, subscribe and hit the bell to the later update from my channel. Thank you for watching till the end and see you in the next video.